So welcome to Formula Fitness. My name is Tony. I'm going to be explaining about hip mobility or flexibility, range of motion. They're all kind of interconnected. And the reason why this is important is because it allows you to move with good form, have better movement patterns, avoid injuries. So those are the key things of the reason why we want to talk about hip mobility today. So let's talk about the nomenclature or the anatomy of the body. You have all your hip flexors such as psoas, your TFL, your quads. All these different muscles over here is called the anterior portion of your hips, right? You also have the lateral portion, adductors, right? Then also you have your posterior side, which is your hamstrings, your glutes. So there's so many different muscles attached here at your pelvis. Now for the upper body, you have your erectors, your transverse abdominis, your abdominals, right? So your rectus abdominis. So those are all different musculature for the upper body that attaches here at the pelvis too. So there's so many different things that attach at the pelvis. So here's my pelvis, right? There's muscles up top, there's muscles down bottom. And if there's one side, whether it's the front, the back, the left or the right, if one side's more tight, more strong, more flexible than the other side, it makes your hips shift in unfavorable positions, right? A really common one is anterior pelvic tilt, which my pelvis will tilt in this position due to sitting a lot or running a lot. So those are really common issues, right? But to explain it a little further, pretend this is my spine, right? And this is my pelvis, right? So I can shift side to side, front and back, just like my hips over here, right? So if, let's say for example, my IT band on my right side's tight and it pulls my hips downwards in this position, well, that also cranks my lower back too. Or if I crank it into an anterior pelvic tilt, this also rounds and puts excessive pressure on my lower back also, right? And also this will make your knees buckle inwards, collapse your feet. It's a lot of different cascade of different events that will happen just from tight hips, right? So for a lot of people, some of the more serious people who work out a lot, like such as CrossFitters, hip mobility is really important for them, all like proper depth in squats and doing their Olympic lifts. Or it could be just something as simple as, a person that has lower back tightness and just stretching out his hips gets rid of that. So let's talk about some of the different tools we'll be using. So you can use tools such as like a ball, a foam roller to help do some type of trigger pointing or myofascial release. Bands will help assist you to help pull you forward or to help hold on to do some static flexibility. There's also dynamic flexibility too. And we're gonna kind of go into some of that right now for the major muscles on the body, right? So let's go ahead and go into the foam roller first. And let's go ahead and roll out. So you could do something like rolling out your hips right over here. This one vibrates. It doesn't matter if it vibrates or not, but you're gonna lay down onto it just like this, right? Leg completely straight. And the breathing technique is going to be super, super important. So there's something called the parasympathetic nervous system and also the sympathetic nervous system. So a fight or flight. The emphasis is talking about the parasympathetic nervous system. So what that is the relaxation of your body. That's you breathing. Whenever you get angry, you get frustrated, you always hear someone say, hey, take a deep breath. That's the reason why we do that to help relax. So when you're rolling out, when you're stretching, it's really, really imperative that you focus on the breathing. So when I'm doing this, when I'm rolling on these tight spots and I find a nice tender, tight spot, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that deep breath in, hold it for a second, 3 count, and then exhale. For approximately about 10 seconds if you can. The longer you can make it last, the better. And just keep on doing this because I promise you, if you don't focus on this breathing technique, you're not going to get nearly as great results as opposed to if you were just holding your breath, which is very common. So getting that mindset of relaxing, taking your time, breathing into it, rolling out those tight muscles as far as your hips go. You can kind of roll into the inside, you can roll to the outside with this foam roller over here. A ball, over here we have something that's made by Hyper Ice. It doesn't have to be the same product. You can use something as far as like a lacrosse ball, a softball, and you can accomplish the same thing, right? So as far as the front side goes. Now let's talk about the hips. The glutes, the piriformis, right? The hamstrings. So if I lay down onto a piece of equipment like so, I can kind of Get the hamstrings, roll around. Same thing, focus on breathing technique, right? Super, super imperative. Get the inner portion of your hamstrings. So those are all the different angles that you can get to the piriformis and the glutes. Just roll it onto your glute. You can cross over that ankle over your knee, roll out to the side, go up a little bit higher. Key thing is explore. Explore around, experiment where you feel the soft tissues, where it feels tight. The only special request I have for you is stay away from your bones. Any type of joints or bones, you don't want to roll on that. It's going to hurt. So stick to the soft tissues, okay? And so yeah, there's that. Now let's go ahead and go into some static flexibility. So like I said, I'm just showing you some examples. In other videos, I'll be a little bit more comprehensive, but right now this is just some of the basics. So let's talk about the hip flexors. Hip flexors, you know, to stretch them out, you can kind of attach a band like this right around an anchor point. Throw 1 foot in, bring it up high, right here by your hips, right? Don't be scared to get some tension, so kick back, right? Drop that knee. Right now, what's happening is this band is pulling my body forward. It's going to allow me to relax, breathe, and let the band do the work. And this is acting like my brake right now. Once I relax this leg, this will pull me forward. Whatever side is down, so if my right side is down, I'm going to squeeze that right glute. I'm going to just feel this stretch all the way across. You can even add a little bit more to it by putting your hands up into the air. This will help allow you to get those psoas muscles also, right? So that's another form of static flexibility for the anterior portion. And now let's go into another one I like. So you can lay down onto your back, get the hamstrings. So it doesn't have to be a band, it could be a belt, it could be a rope, whatever is something that's long and it can wrap around your arch like this. Keep that leg completely straight, pull all the way back. You can, and also what I prefer you to do is have this foot completely straight, this foot completely straight. And if you're in something called dorsiflexion, which is pointing your toe downwards, it's going to help allow you to stretch that hamstring a lot more effectively. All right, so make sure to have it pointed downwards. Which is also going to help too is if you have that band around your toe portion, that'll help. All right, so go ahead and pull, and focus on that breathing. Right, so for me, I like to take about 5 deep breaths. So stretching is one of those things that you don't want to rush through. It's just something where you're going to have the time. You're going to also have that right mindset where you're completely relaxed, almost like you're in a yoga class or you're meditating, right? Something where you're in that state of mind of, hey, this is my time, this is my Zen time, focus on that breathing, okay? Another way you can also stretch out this muscle is if you bend the knee slightly and then you pull. Right, so you bend that knee slightly and then you pull, you're gonna get the upper portion of your hamstring as opposed to like the middle portion behind that knee. So those are different angles you can kind of focus on. You can also come across, get more of the hips, you get more of the inner thighs by coming across right over here like this also, right? So another one I like too is, let's say for example, here's a popular one, a pigeon stretch. So you're gonna be in this position right here, come forward, lean into it, you can get all this hip muscle stretched out, okay? You can experiment with different angles by coming across, coming straight to the front, or out to the side, right? So those are 3 different angles, and also you can kind of shift in between each one too. So instead of 3-point, you can make it a 6-point stretch too, and you'll notice that different angles of your hips will stretch out of more, so the back side that you'll feel. So experiment, explore, and that's what's going to help allow you to show you what's tight, what's not, what works best for you. So, all right, so we talked about the front side, we've talked about the glutes, we talked about the hamstrings, a little bit of the adductors with the static flexibility and also roller. Let's talk about the psoas a little bit. The psoas is probably the main and the biggest hip flexor of the body. And what the psoas is, it's the filet mignon of the human body, right? So it's equivalent to that. So it attaches at your lower back. From your lower back, it comes downwards and attaches in the inside of your inner thigh or your femur. So this muscle is kind of hard to get to. It's actually a little bit sensitive to get to. You could use a roller or you can do some type of static flexibility. So I'll actually keep it really simple today and teach you something like a cobra stretch, okay? So cobra stretch. is right here. So if you've gone to your yoga class, this is a cobra stretch. It's great for hitting that psoas muscle. So hands by your armpits, shoulders downwards. Make sure to activate and lock out those glute muscles for me. Push yourself upwards, right? Keep your glute muscles nice and tense. That's going to help protect your back. Take those deep breaths in. And exhale. Okay, so I talked a lot about the basics of hip mobility, covered a lot, static flexibility, foam rolling, breathing technique. So practice those. If you have any more questions, comment, or reach out to Formula Fitness.